Thank you, Betty, for a wonderful start to this beautiful morning. I had to practically sit on my hands to keep from clapping and interrupting the service. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Door County. Welcome to this morning, this day, this opportunity to be together in community, which is a time of joy, comfort, and sometimes challenges. This Unitarian Universalist congregation is a place where we come to learn more about being human. We're not here because we've figured out life's questions or because we think we've got it right. We come here to learn more about being in relationship together, how to listen, how to forgive, how to be vulnerable, and how to create trust and compassion in one another. Let us move into worship, willing to be authentic with each other, honest within ourselves, and opening to connection in all its forms. My name is Donna Johnson, and I'm your service leader this morning. I ask that you take a moment to silence any cell phones or noise-making devices at this time in honor of our time together. Also, if you have trouble hearing at any point in the service, raise your hand and Tom will make an adjustment if necessary. On behalf of this fellowship, I extend a special welcome to any visitors who may be with us today. It is our custom to ask visitors to introduce themselves. So if you're here for the first time or haven't been here in a while, we ask you to stand if you are able and tell us who you are, where you are from, and maybe a word about what brought you here today. Any newcomers or? I don't think so. I think I recognize everybody. This is great. Now, at this time, if there are any announcements related to the fellowship, in addition to what's on the back of the order of service, please share those now, and please wait for the microphone to be brought to you so that all may hear your announcement, and please identify yourself when you speak so that those who are listening in or watching will know who you are. Any announcements?
Cindy Nelson, this is a request. I am looking for a three-legged stool. They used to be popular. They're not so popular anymore. So if by some chance you can dig through your garages, attics, back rooms and find me a three-legged stool, I only need to borrow it for Sunday, March 24th, and then you will have it back. So please contact me if you happen to have one. Thank you.
Joan Shields, good morning. I am going to be leading a book study at the Sister Bay Library on world religions. I did this in Sturgeon Bay Library last year. We had a great time with it. We read one chapter a month in Houston Smith's book about world religions, and then we get together and we talk about it. And I think it's going to be in the e-blast, and a couple of people from the fellowship have already contacted me, but it starts the first week in April. If that is of any interest to you, just let me know.
What day of the week?
Thursday. I know it's at 10:30 in the morning. I'm pretty sure it's Thursday.
Details to follow.
Good morning, Anna Knapp here. Our Gibraltar Girl Scouts have troops anywhere from ages kindergarten all the way up to juniors in high school. And as you probably know, it is cookie time. At the Piggly Wiggly, there will be cookie booths every Saturday and Sunday this month of, all those different ages. So please stop by either there, or Ellie's troop has a little self-service cookie booth here in our lobby. So you could check that out too. This one's limited flavors. So if you're looking for thin mints, you're going to have to end up going to the Piggly Wiggly at some point.
Thank you. We light this flame for the art of sacred unknowing, humbled by all that we cannot fathom in this time. We come into the presence of what we do know, perhaps the only thing we can ever know, that love is now and forever, the only answer to everything and everyone in every moment. We gather on this morn to worship in spirit and truth, to raise a joyful noise to the eternal mystery, to reconfirm our covenant, to seek wisdom in love, to strengthen our commitment to a common good. We come from many paths to explore that which is hidden, to consider the ways of our hearts, to confess how we have stumbled, and to heal what is broken. We assemble in the effort to quicken our compassion and mercy, to deepen our understanding and renew our courage, to remember who we are. Thus do we celebrate the grace and gift of life and practice our faith. Please stand in body or spirit to sing hymn number 10, Immortal Love, and please remain standing to join in the unison affirmation followed by the doxology. Carol will play the hymn through once before we begin. We gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to explore freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate within a caring community those truths, ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives. At this time, you are invited to share any joys you may have so that we may celebrate with you. Or if you have concerns that burden you, feel free to share so that we may offer solace and support. Please identify yourself when you share, and please wait for Judy to bring the microphone to you. And keep in mind that the service is being broadcast and will be on the internet. Please do not share about another person or persons if you do not have permission from them to do so.
Hi, this is Cindy, and I returned on last Sunday morning at about 8:45 a.m. from a wonderful week in Hawaii with my dear friend Pam and her husband. You've met Pam, my singing friend from Massachusetts. We had a lovely time, lovely week spent together. And the last time I was here, I mentioned a dear friend who is enduring a very, very serious health issue, and she has more tests this week, so I hope you will hold her in your thoughts and heart. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will now collect the offering. If you prefer, you can make a donation online from our website, uufdc.org. You'll find the donate button on the far right side of the homepage. It's safe and easy and secure to make your payment there. Please give generously to support the work of this fellowship. I am so pleased to welcome back the Reverend Joan Shields. She has shared with us her wonderful messages and insights for over 23 years. Her graduate degrees in religion, divinity, and theology have given her not only great knowledge, but also great wisdom, which aided her in her work as a chaplain in hospitals and assisted living facilities. We're looking forward to hearing from her once again. Please join in a moment of quiet.
I realized in 23 years of coming to you how deeply influenced I have been by you and by Unitarianism, because as we picked up the hymn, I found myself guilty of the Unitarian habit of, when encountering a new hymn, you read ahead to see if you agree with the words. And I thought, oh, well, I know where I am. I don't have to worry. The reading this morning is taken from the Huffington Post, a religion page there in 2016. And it says, Easter is not about a bunny. Easter is about Jesus crucified and resurrected. Granted, the word Easter does not show up in the Bible, but is taken from Estre, an Anglo-Saxon fertility goddess of spring. And Estre had a rabbit as a companion, which explains the Easter bunnies. I'm still waiting for an explanation on the eggs. Fast forward 2,000 years, give or take a century. And the reason that Easter has become so secularized is because of the profit motive. chocolate bunnies are associated with Easter because corporations, mainly the candy manufacturers, secularized Easter for the sake of money. So it is the Easter season, the time of year when in Christian churches and on Sunday mornings almost everywhere, the Christians are gathering to hear once again the foundational stories of their faith. In word and in song, they will shout hallelujah, and they will retell the familiar tales. Jesus died on a cross, was laid in a tomb. On the third day, he rose from the dead. We all know the story. We've heard it all our lives, even if we were unchurched. But here at the Unitarian Fellowship, we're free to celebrate something else. And I don't mean bunnies. I realized as I worked on this message, instead of becoming Easter for non-Christians, it definitely became Easter for Unitarians. So I'm going to offer you a different way to understand this story, to interpret it in a different way. And I very often when I'm here, I wear my storyteller hat. But today I'm wearing my theologian hat. Someone from the fellowship said to me, you know, Joan, you have all these jillion years of seminary. Why don't you share some of that with us? So, okay. And obviously I went to a very liberal seminary. First, a little reflection about the Christian myth. Now, I'm sure that you already know that the birth stories in the Bible are just that. They're stories. There was no one there to record the facts. And so no matter how often we hear it, we understand that there was no star in the sky, no angels in attendance, no wise men arriving on camels, no special baby in a manger because there was no room at the inn. There were some years in the first century when tribal Jews met a mature man named Jesus, probably around 30 years old, and they were amazed by him. And these men, and I emphasize men, wrote these stories to tell others how he made them feel. By all reports, and these reports came from very different kinds of people, this Jesus was such an extraordinary person, and he made such a great impact on people that it was a life-changing experience. And those that loved him and believed his message made up stories, lots of them, so that other people might try to understand how extraordinary he was. Now, the men that we know as Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, of course, never met Jesus. They never met each other. The Gospels attributed to them, of course, not written by them. These are made-up names. Appeared between 40 and 80 years after the death of Jesus. So the people who had known him or had secondhand experience from elders in the tribe felt that these stories had to be written so that they would not be, and he would not be, forgotten. But these Bible stories about his birth, which appear only in Matthew and Luke, not the other two, were fabricated from whole cloth, just like the birth stories. And out of these storytellers' convictions that the adult Jesus who walked the earth was such a unique person, such a unique personality, and he had such an amazing effect on the people that he encountered, they said, oh, well, let's invent some really good stories about him. And let's make them fabulous. And if you've ever studied the Bible as literature, these, in a literary sense, are terrific stories. And like the birth stories, they are elaborate fictions. written again 40 to 80 years after the death of Jesus, by people who never knew him, never encountered him, but who believed in his message of love and forgiveness. And these believers were just simply ordinary human beings who could not allow Jesus' humiliating death to be meaningless. That's just how people are. That's how humans are. That's how we are. Think of the worst thing that ever happened to you in your life. Someone you loved died unexpectedly, or too soon, or you had a devastating illness or an accident. You were betrayed by an intimate, or you lost your house or your lover or your child or your money or your health. Or you watched these things happen to someone that you loved. You yourself have probably gone through a process of asking yourself why these things happened. Very often when people relate to me something terrible that's happened to them, they say, the first thing I thought is why me? I haven't done anything wrong. And there's an immediate human response to try to assign meaning to these events in our lives. And very few of us are able to live through these traumatic events without assigning some kind of meaning to them. And the followers of Jesus were no different in that respect. So any practical or rational analysis of the gospel stories of Jesus' death and resurrection reveal that they are highly stylized stories designing to lead the person that hears them into an understanding of who this man, Jesus, was, and to understand his sublime effect on those who encountered him, and an attempt to give meaning to his ignominious death. The Romans would not have the last word. And while the person Jesus was probably, according to other historical reports, crucified by the Romans, the familiar stories and details that accompany the story of the cross are not, of course, literally true. There was no actual dialogue recorded between Jesus and Pilate or the high priests or between Jesus and the crowd. No one really knows what Jesus said on the cross. He was not crucified between two robbers, penitent or otherwise. Even these stories, written by the faithful, admitted that his disciples and those who loved him fled in fear, and that he died alone. These early Christians, all of whom were Jews, seeking to interpret the power and wonder they had encountered, very creatively went back to their own sacred scriptures, what we call the Old Testament, full of stories about the nature of God and that the Messiah would come someday to redeem them from this horrible place that the Romans had put them in. And they went there to seek to try to understand what the sources of Jesus's power might have been, if indeed he were the Messiah. Now, it's important to understand that at the time of Jesus walking the earth, they were all Jews, but there were Jesus-believing Jews who said, yeah, that's the Messiah, see? And then there were Jesus not believing Jews who said, no, we're still waiting. And as you know, they're still waiting. And they wanted to make sense of the fact that the one in whom they had experienced such love and such absolute truth, why had this person been executed as a common criminal? It didn't make sense any more than we lose someone we love who has been the epitome of a good person, is brutally tortured by a disease as they're dying. It doesn't seem right. These early Jews had no language, no words with which to talk about this profound experience. So they invented these imaginative tales of an earthquake, and a darkness at noon, and words spoken on the cross, and a stone that was rolled back, and an angel in white appearing, and it resuscitated Jesus walking and talking and eating after he was clearly dead. Now, that story is not history. This is men writing stories, myths. I mean, your religion is my myth, right? My myth is your religion, if you want to look at it globally. But these stories were all drawn from things that they found in their scriptures, in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, I think it's in Jeremiah, it says that the Messiah will come and he will be born in Bethlehem. Oh, okay, make a note. Jesus needs to be born in Bethlehem. And when you study this academically, you find how much this is true, that these predictions that appear in the Old Testament, sure enough, they pop up in the Jesus stories, so that you go, oh, you're right. He must be the Messiah. The life that he lived and the lessons that he taught were meant to invite people into a oneness with him, and then by association into a oneness with the God they knew, with divinity. And they used the only things they knew, which were the details and the stories and the predictions from the Old Testament. And these familiar narratives purport to describe how and why Jesus was born and why he died, and they tell their readers then and now what they need to believe about his life and death, namely that the death was not a tragedy, but that it was with great meaning for him, for the faith, and for them personally. It was an event of sacred and saving significance. Now, I understand that these stories are a very human response to an unexpected and humiliating death of an extraordinary and much beloved man. His followers had to assign meaning, so they wrote these stories so they could assign the same meaning to people who would come after them, who never knew Jesus, who never knew anyone who knew Jesus, who were so far down the genealogical line that he could have been a stranger. But the stories made him real. And the rest is history. Literally, the history of Western civilization. When the Roman Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity in the 4th century, it was not because he had had some great conversion experience. It was not because his mother, who was a devout Christian, really tried to convert him. She did, St. Monica, but that didn't do it. And he wasn't out of theological conviction. He did it because he was a very smart emperor. And he realized he needed to consolidate his power into one group. And at the time, there were all these different stories about Jesus and, stories radiating and different gospels appearing, some of which we have now, some of which we don't. And they all sort of developed a different reason to believe that this was the Messiah. And this is not the way to centralize power. So Constantine needed to consolidate power in one group, and one group that he could control. So he went to these many leaders of these different factions of Jews who believed that Jesus was the Messiah and had widely divergent beliefs. And he told them in no uncertain terms, get your story straight, boys. I need one story, one faith, and so settle your differences. And they did. I can't remember the name of the conference or whatever they called it, but he literally got them all together in Rome at a table, and they had to come up with this one story that became Orthodox Christianity. Now, we can still find some of those other Christianity. Some of you have heard about Gnostic Christianity and the Gnostic Gospels. There are many different interpretations of the life and death of Jesus, but the Orthodox ones were settled at the time of Constantine. And Constantine did not insist that everybody become a Christian. He just made it really hard to get a job if you didn't. He was clever. And so Christianity spread quickly. And Christianity, unlike some other religions, is easy. You know what the Jews require for you to be a Jewish man? I mean, no man looks forward to being circumcised. But with Christianity, all you have to do is believe. All you have to do is say, I believe, and you're a Christian. And once a powerful church hierarchy was established, the leaders found it was very helpful to sell these stories as fact. They were true stories, and you know the rest. These foundational stories are what people told themselves and others to unify their beliefs and their values and themselves as a people into a singular power base. Gee, isn't it still happening? Wow. I just thought of that. These kinds of stories are what philosophers call useful fictions. Useful fictions. I love that term. They're especially useful with children. All these great gospel stories about what Jesus did and the disciples did, they're easy to remember. They sell a moral, and that's what they are. They teach morals wrapped in narratives so that you can remember them. And as a bonus, if you became a Christian believer, when people were told that Jesus's death was part of a redeeming plan to forgive them for their sins, it made them feel better. And then when they were told that Jesus ascended into heaven and that they were going to as well, relieved the second greatest fear of human beings, dying. I'm sorry, I have to tell this, my favorite joke. Statistics tell us that the two things that humans are most afraid of, is number one is public speaking, and two is dying, which means if you go to a funeral, you would rather be in the coffin than giving the eulogy. Okay, thank you, Jerry Seinfeld. So I get it. I do not believe that these stories in the gospel are true in any literal sense. But I do recognize the usefulness of believing in them. And I know that many people have a sincere need to believe that these stories are not just useful fictions, but they are in fact true. And I have great respect for these stories and for all the foundational stories of all the world's great religions. I love teaching world religions. I love finding the similarities between Hinduism and Islam and Taoism and Christianity. And my feelings about all of these religions is another way that I am included in the community of Unitarian Universalism. You see that piece of art on the wall? You all know what it is. These are symbols that stand for all of the world's great religious traditions. We don't reject them. We put them on the wall. We honor them. Each religious tradition is represented and contained in its own circle, but it's all in a broader circle, wider circle that represents Unitarian Universalism, which is, of course, symbolized in the middle. So we're holding them all at a distance, yet honoring them all and respecting them as different paths to the search for wisdom and truth, which just, 10 minutes ago we claimed was our purpose here. So I see Unitarian Universalism not only as a descendant of Christianity, but of all the world's religions because UUs adhere to the same ethical code of conduct as the other religions. It's just that the supernatural elements are removed. Now, when I was in seminary in Berkeley, most of the students in our classes were Christian, but Starr King, the Unitarian seminary, was right next door to where I was with the Franciscans. And a lot of those Unitarians would show up in our classes, in the classes full of Christians. And one day a friend of mine asked a Unitarian classmate, "What do they teach you over there at the Unitarian seminary?" And she simply said, "They teach us the same things they teach you. They just tell us not to believe them." I thought that was perfect. So don't let anyone tell you you don't have faith. You have just as much faith as anyone else, but you put your faith in action differently. That's fine. More power to you. At Easter, the day Christians celebrate the most fundamental stories of their religion, let us celebrate the fundamental beliefs of universalism. UU is a life-centered faith. It is a commonplace to say that UUs are anti-religious, but they are not against ethical values. On the contrary, for the Unitarian, as I understand it, life itself is inherently sacred. He or she believes that human existence in this world is intrinsically worthy of reverence, and that the world of ordinary experience is capable of inspiring profound feelings of isolation, of devotion, I mean. When you sit and write these things, they come out easily out of the fingers, but when you have to speak them, it's a little harder. Unitarians have an optimistic attitude about the capacity of people. They don't necessarily believe that human nature is necessarily good or that all people can live up to their ideals without help. If anything, there is a recognition that living up to one's potential takes hard work that needs to be done in community. No monks. Never heard of a Unitarian monk. They're all in community. The ultimate goal is human flourishing, making life better for humans. And as the most conscious of all the Earth species, also promoting concern for the welfare of the Earth and all sentient beings. The focus is on doing good in the here and now, and leaving the world better for those who come after. Unitarian Universalism teaches us that it is wrong to wait for a God to act for us, that we believe that we must act to stop the wars and the crimes and the brutality of this and future ages. And we believe that we have remarkable powers to do so. We have a high degree of freedom in choosing how we do it. I smile every time I see that sign that says, this part of the highway is cleaned up by Unitarians. I go, yay, every little act makes a difference. We believe that whatever our philosophy of the universe may be, and I know they're all over the place, ultimately the responsibility for the kind of world we live in rests in us, in people. Theodore Parker, famous Unitarian, said that Unitarian Universalism, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple is all space, all time. Its shrine is the good heart. Its creed is all truth. Its ritual acts of love. Good guy, Theodore Parker. I really like that one. That is a very fine religion. So let's make this Easter season one of celebration of your own faith and a place where we celebrate what we believe in the way that we believe It has meaning and makes a difference. A place where love is the spirit of the church, where service is its law, where the grand covenant is to dwell together in peace and to seek the truth in love, to help one another. Peace be with you.
Please stand in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 344, A Promise Through the Ages Rings. And again, Carol will play the hymn through once, as it may not be as familiar to all of us. I hope you will join us in the gathering room for coffee, tea, and fellowship following the service. And after approximately 15 minutes, a chime will sound, and it will signal the start of the talkback with Joan in this area of the sanctuary. In our hunger for meaning, in our aching for friendship, in our yearning for justice, in our hearts remembering of finer days, may we look deep within the mystery of things and gather our strength. May each of us proclaim the graceful power of life and love, and so may we live in hope. We have basked in the warmth and beauty of this flame and this community. As the chalice flame is extinguished, let us carry its glow within. Let us kindle new sparks within these walls and beyond. May it be so.